Here we're going to have a clip. This is from Europe After the Rain, Dadaism and Surrealism.
18. Germany is disintegrating in the wake of famine, military chaos, and the collapse of the Kaiser's government. Richard Hulsenbeck brings Dada from Zurich to Berlin. In Berlin, Dada is primarily political and collective.
The manifesto as a literary medium answered our need for directness. We had no time to lose. We wanted to incite our opponents and, if necessary, to create new opponents for ourselves. We hated nothing so much as romantic silence and the search for a soul. The soul can only reveal itself through direct action. The Dadaist Central Revolutionary Council demands 1. The International Revolutionary Union of all creative and intellectual men and women on the basis of radical
I
communism.
just wanted to record this because of the image.
The introduction of progressive unemployment through the comprehensive mechanization of every field of activity. 3. The immediate expropriation of property and the communal feeding of all. The erection of cities of light and gardens which will belong to society as a whole and prepare man for a state of freedom. We further demand daily meals at public expense for all creative and intellectual men and women on the Potsdamer Platz. Compulsory adherence of all clergymen and teachers to the Dadaist Articles of Faith. Daily meals at public expense for all creative and intellectual men and women on the Potsdamer Platz. Compulsory adherence of all clergymen and teachers to the Dadaist Articles of Faith. The most brutal struggle against the concealed bourgeois tendencies of expressionism.
Naked lady, peeping toms,
Introduction
carriages,
of the simultaneist poem as a communist state prayer.
skeletons, stairs. On to the next.
George Gross draws portraits of Berlin society.
They're on so good beast. Ooh. Oh, is he about to get killed? That's what that scene was. That was like a public killing.
George Gross, Hannah Hoch, and Raoul Hausmann,
I love Hannah Hoch.
who developed the technique of photomontage.
Yeah.
The field of photomontage has as many possibilities as there are changes in the environment. Photomontage creates from totally disparate elements a new unity, which reveals a conceptually new image of the chaos of an age of war and revolution.
Raoul Hausmann develops his phonetic poems.
When language becomes petrified in the academies, ravaged and made barren by journalism, its true spirit takes refuge amongst children and mad poets.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sir Dadaism speaks some historical poems phonetic from 1918. No moon on a pool, it's so kili korom, snow soon, cum soon, da do da, iri da doom. Noom, Kolakum, Onomum,
Is it a magic spell?
1920. Dada in Berlin reaches its climax with the first International Dada Fair.
No, look at that. That guy's on the
The
ceiling.
effigy of a German officer with a pig's head and a placard around his neck proclaiming, "Hanged by the Revolution."
The answer to the question whether or not our work can be called art depends on whether or not the future belongs to the working class.
a man introduces himself to the Berlin Dada group with the words,
I'm a painter, and I nail my pictures together.
he applies for membership of the club Dada, but is vetoed on account of his bourgeois face. His name is Kurt Schwitters. Rejected by the Dadaists, he returns to Hanover, cuts up an advertisement, and creates the word Metz, which he uses to describe his paintings and poetry.
Metz stands for freedom from all fetters for the sake of artistic creation. Metz is as tolerant as possible towards its materials. I saw no reason that old tickets, pieces of driftwood, wire, wheels, buttons, rubbish from attics, should not be used for paintings on an equal footing with pigments manufactured in paint factories. To some extent, this was a social point of view, but above all, it was the ultimate in logical consistency.
Beep, 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 beep.
That's beautiful.
In Cologne, Max Ernst and Johannes Bargeld initiate the Dada conspiracy of the Rhineland. Bargeld has just founded the Rhineland Communist Party, and Ernst has just discovered the principle of collage.
I found myself taking an obsessive interest in the pages of an illustrated catalogue which lay to hand. I experienced a hallucinatory succession of double and triple images, and what had been simply banal pages of advertisements became so many dramas revealing my most secret desires.
In 1920, Tristan Tzara brings Dada from Zurich to Paris, where he is awaited like a messiah.
La chanson Dada, musique de Georges Auric. La chanson d'un dadaïste qui n'était ni gai ni triste et aimait une bicycliste qui n'était ni gai ni triste. Mais les poules le jour de l'an s'arrêtent tout et dans une crise en voyant au Vatican leurs deux corps en trois valises. Ni amant ni cycliste n'était plus ni gai ni triste. Mangez de bon cerveau.
Excellent brains, wash your...
Votre soldat. Dada,
Ah.
dada,
Ah.
buvez de l'eau.
In Paris, Duchamp paints a moustache onto the Mona Lisa. André Breton is editing the magazine Littérature, which becomes the mouthpiece for Dada in Paris. Tzara and Breton write manifestos. Picabia designs magazines. Dada organizes excursions and outrages.
At the Salle Gaveau, we created a great scandal. For the first time in the history of the world, people threw at us not only eggs, salads, and pennies, but beefsteaks as well. It was a great success. The audience was extremely Dada.
Tonight's performance will include a ballet for 3 feathered sardines and the reverie of the forsaken brontosaurus.
Dada is not a mystification. It is the entire human mystery.
We were right to be suspicious. Dada is clearly a facade for German infiltration.
Dada, a limited company for the exploitation of the vocabulary.
Double your income with Dada. Only Dada is worth the investment of intellectual capital.
The picturesque is the opposite of art. Art is the opposite of life.
If you read André Gide aloud for 10 minutes, your breath will stink.
The first mechanical work of art was created by Mrs. Tzara, the day when she brought little Tristan into the world.
If you wish to keep your ideas clean, you must change them regularly, like your shirts.
Dada has become as boring as the Académie Française. In an effort to prolong its life, Dada has become sealed up inside itself.
True Dadaists are against Dada.
By 1922, the Dadaists are bringing out entire magazines devoted to insulting each other. Tzara and Breton and Picabia quarrel violently. Dada has destroyed itself. Francis Picabia writes the scenario for René Clair's film Entr'acte. Sarah and Breton and Picabia quarrel violently. Dada has destroyed itself. Francis Picabia writes the scenario for René Clair's film Entr'acte.
I didn't really watch it. The film. Where are they all running to?
Tristan Tzara delivers a funeral oration for Dada.
Dada marches on, destroying more and more. From all these feelings of disgust, it draws no conclusions, no pride, and no profit. It no longer even fights, for it knows that this serves no purpose. And here we come to the great secret. Dada is a state of mind. That is why it transforms itself according to all the events and nations it encounters.
Hi, Aphrodite.
Dada applies itself to everything, and yet it is nothing.
What you doing, Cindy?
Dada is the point at which yes and no and all opposites meet. Not noisily in the palaces of human philosophy, but quite simply at street corners, like dogs and grasshoppers. Dada is useless. Like everything else in life. Dada has no pretensions, just as life should have none.
And scene.
From the debris of Dada, André Breton begins to organize a more positive direction for the energy Dada has unleashed.
Leave everything. Leave Dada. Leave your wife. Leave your mistress. Leave your hopes and your fears. Sow your children in the corner of a wood. Leave the substance for the shadow. Set out on the road.
Breton's system is searching for access to the unconscious.
Under the pretense of civilization and progress, we have managed to banish from the mind everything that may rightly or wrongly be termed superstition.
Piece of paper thrown.
Forbidden is any kind of search for truth that does not conform with accepted practices. It was apparently by pure chance that part of our mental world, which we pretended not to be concerned with, in my opinion, the most important part, has been brought to light. For this, we must give thanks to Sigmund Freud.
Sigmund Freud, huh?
The imagination is perhaps on the point of reasserting itself, of reclaiming its rights.
Breton becomes the central figure of a group of writers and artists seeking a new balance between conscious and unconscious thought. He responds to the mystery implied by Giorgio de Chirico's paintings.
Yeah.
De Chirico writes,
What will the aim of future paintings be? To create previously unknown sensations, to strip art of everything routine and accepted, to see everything, including man, as the thing itself. For a work of art to be truly immortal, it must go beyond the limits of the human. Common sense and logic will fail. In this manner, it will approach the dream and mentality of childhood.
I believe in the future resolution of these two states of dream and reality, which appear so contradictory, in a kind of absolute reality. Surreality, one might call it. It would be an error to consider art as an end. The doctrine of art for art's sake seems senseless to me. We know that poetry must lead somewhere.
Louis Aragon writes The Paris Peasant, describing the revelations that lurk beneath the surface of the city.
Man no longer worships the gods
Oh,
on
that's
their
why I need an
heights.
extender. I like
Solomon's
extender.
temple has slid into a world of metaphor. But there are other places where men go calmly about their mysterious lives,
Really hard to
where a
train in my
profound
ear,
religion
so
is
don't
gradually
say
taking
that.
place. I begin to discover the face of the
Yeah.
infinite behind the concrete forms which escort me through this world. Reality is the apparent absence of contradictions. The marvelous is the eruption of contradictions within the real. Love is a state of confusion between the real and the marvelous. When the marvelous is dispossessed, the abstract moves in.
Surrealism. Pure psychic automatism by which it is intended to express, either verbally or in writing, the true function of thought. Thought dictated in the
it's
absence of all
me!
control
It's me,
exerted by
Michael!
reason,
It's okay, it was
outside
me.
all moral or aesthetic
Enough, it was
preoccupations.
me. I made that noise.
The first
Jeez,
phase
you
of surrealist
split my
art
head
is
in half.
intuitive. André Masson
all right,
developed
bud.
the technique of automatic drawing.
Promise, enough.
I
It was
begin without
me.
an image or plan in mind,
I made the noise.
but paint or draw rapidly according to my impulses. Gradually, in the marks I make,
It was
I
me.
see suggestions of figures or objects.
I was looking for the
I encourage
Potterami.
these to emerge, trying
Lay
to bring
that
out their
down.
implications,
Wild
even as
one.
I now consciously try to give order to the composition.
This isn't the one I'm looking for. I'm not even paying attention to this art.
Suggestions of figures or objects. I encourage these to emerge, trying to bring out their implications, even as I now consciously try to give order to the composition.
Where did I put the pot? I like this music. I have to make sure I upload this shortly hereafter.
To adapt his automatic technique to painting, Masson applies sand directly to the canvas, fixing his image with glue and paint.
That doesn't quite make sense. Here's the other bag.
Juan Miro develops a system of intuitive signs within his paintings.
Rather than setting out to paint something, I begin painting, and as I paint, the picture begins to assert itself under my brush. the form becomes a sign for a woman or a bird. For me, a form is never something abstract. It is always
I'm
a
a little
sign
puzzled.
for something.
Is it right? Not here? This can't be on my pot. What's happening here? Oh, that's a cool one. I did love John Miro. His stuff is cool. If he's still talking about him. I love this music. I need to take a harder look at this pot here. That's Jason's. This is Erica's. This is Jason's. This is Trey.
Max Ernst invents
This is
passage,
Erica's.
creating images from the
She said
impressions
he's
of
shot, but
surfaces.
he's not.
On August 10th, 1925, I was
Throw that
struck
in
by the
grinder.
obsession exerted upon my excited gaze by the floor. At random, I dropped pieces of paper and rubbed them with black lead. I was surprised by the sudden intensification of my visionary faculties. By enlarging my mind's hallucinatory powers, I succeeded in attending, simply as a spectator,
What?
at the birth of my own work.
Oh, that's cool.
To advance their exploration of the unconscious, the Surrealists open a research office and issue their own visiting cards.
Parents, tell your dreams to your children.
Surrealism. Is it the communism of genius?
You who cannot see, think of those who can.
Antonin Artaud is appointed director of the research office.
Puzzled.
Artaud writes addresses to the Dalai Lama and the Buddhists.
Michael, we're getting closer and
We
closer
are
to your
your very
bed.
faithful servants, O great Lama. Grant to us your wisdom in a language our contaminated European minds can understand. We are surrounded by
Goodness.
popes, scribblers, critics, dogs whose thoughts are earthbound, who think incorrigibly in the present. Teach us, Lama, material levitation of the body and how we can be held no longer by the earth. Hurl back into the ocean those white men who arrive with their small heads and well-behaved minds. We suffer from a corruption.
Guys, I'm
the
puzzled.
corruption of reason. Logical Europe endlessly crushes the mind between the jaws of two extremes. It opens and recloses the mind. We have suffered too long under the yoke. Like you, we reject progress. Come and tear down our houses.
(1928). Salvador Dali arrives in Paris, aged 24. He denounces Cézanne as a very dirty painter and bases his own style on pure illusionism.
The illusionism of the most abjectly arriviste and imitative art, the usual paralyzing tricks of trompe-l'oeil, the most analytically narrative and discredited academicism, can all become sublime hierarchies of thought and a path to a new
I'm
position of
greatly
concrete
puzzled.
rationality.
What time is it? .30. Looks like you might be home. All right, we got to stop on this data. Plus, it's 25 minutes long. We'll continue.